when I went in to see the doctor, he was like, your life is never going to be the same. He goes, you're going to be permanently disabled. You're never going to walk again. You're never going to work again. You need to go back home and get in your wheelchair. And I left that appointment feeling like I had been kicked in the gut. And I did not go home and get in my wheelchair. Instead, I went straight to physical therapy.
It's time to get inside your own head. Begin with the psychology behind your behaviors. Infuse it with an acute understanding of self-awareness, emotion, storytelling, body language, and more. Then look at it all through the lens of the latest neuroscience research, broken down to its most digestible form. And you've arrived. Enhanced messaging, deeper connection, heightened influence, and a greater impact on the world. Welcome to the Amplify Podcast with Renee Rodriguez.
Welcome back to the Amplify Podcast, and today I have a very special guest. And I know we say that at every event and every single podcast. We have a special guest today. Well, one, because they are all special, but today is truly special for multiple reasons, which you're going to find out why. Amberly Lago has become one of my favorite humans. My wife and I both talk about how much we love Amberly. We met her through different networks. We've seen her speak. We've seen what she's done. And we learned her story and what she went through and who she became. And so today I want you to listen from a different place. You're going to listen with your heart today on this podcast because you're going to see things and you're going to hear things in a story. And I want you to listen from the perspective of who are you during your most difficult times? Are you able to shine through during your most difficult journeys? Ralph Waldo Emerson had a great quote. He said, adversity does not build character, it reveals it. And ever since I was younger, I've always looked at, when I heard that quote in college, I always looked at two things. One is, who am I during my most difficult times? And what does that reveal about myself? And then when I'm with other people, I take notes when they're going through difficult times because it's also revealing of who they are. And so I want you to listen today with that mindset. Listen with your heart, hear the story, and self-reflect on what you're going to hear. So with all of that, I am so excited to invite you here and have you here. Amberly, how are you today?
Oh, Renee, thank you so much for having me on your show. I listen to your show all the time. Well, I follow you and your journey and what you and Maddie do all the time. And I'm so honored to actually get to speak at your event coming up here in Dallas in August. And so it is truly an honor to be on your show. So thank you so much.
Well, the honor is ours, and we are excited. If you don't know, if you're listening to this, AMPCON is on August 16th, where Amberly's going to be one of the main keynote speakers there. And you will fall in love with her just like the rest of us have. And so, but I want to get right into it. Here, just a little bit about your backdrop. You were a model, fitness expert, had your life changed when you got hit by a semi and almost died, almost lost your leg, somehow recovered it. I'm just going to tell you the hybrid version. I mean, riding a Harley, almost lost her leg, came back, turned her life around, and used that as a platform to help other people, not only going through difficult times, but also with very specific CPS. It's complex, and I'm going to have you explain it, but people that have it.
Yeah, complex regional pain syndrome.
Yeah. But it's, even if you don't have complex regional pain syndrome, I want you to hear her process and how she manages difficulty. Because all of us, here's the one thing that we know for sure. Life will deal suffering to you. Life will present you with opportunities that are difficult. There is no such thing as a clean way through this world. And I think that's a good thing because suffering and difficulty and sacrifice have a tendency and the ability to teach us more than good times do. And so with all that being said, give us a story, Amberly, of what happened.
Yeah, well, you know what, Renee? I'm so blessed that I got to talk to you yesterday and we were just talking about like how times have changed with our kids. Like people are like, "Oh, I don't want them to have to go through hard times." But hard times and adversity that builds our grit and our resilience. And that's, I think, everything that I have been through has changed everything that my kids are doing. Like my daughter is, my oldest daughter actually told me, she goes, "Yeah, Mom, when you were in the hospital and going through surgery after surgery after surgery and you were bedbound," she goes, "the only thing I felt like I had control over was like I studied and I got good grades." And I was like, "Well, see, there's a silver lining. You've got good grades and now she's in Yale. She's studying medicine. She's going to be a doctor." And that stemmed from a tragedy of her seeing me go through so many surgeries. My youngest daughter, she is a horseback rider. She's an equestrian. And I feel like all the really tough times that she has been through has helped her be resilient. It's helped her in every way. And I remember, so we were at a barn. We lived in California for 31 years, and we were at a barn, and all these equestrians bought horses that were $100,000 plus. And we bought our daughter a horse that was $5,000 that was sent out to pasture. This horse came in, there was no muscle. He wouldn't even respond to you if you touched him. He would try to bite you. And every day we left the lesson, she cried. And every time she went to a lesson, her friends were like, "You're never going to win anything on that horse." And I told her, I said, "Ruby, you are a team and you're going to build yourself up with him together, and you're going to learn how to do it and build grit and resilience, and you're going to get back on that horse even when he bucks you off." And guess what? Their first competition, she got overall champion of the whole show. So she went from having this horse that was sent to pasture, she just gave it extra love, extra attention, rode more. It was all about the grit. And Angela Duckworth says that grit is the key predictor of success. It's not like how much money you have, how good looking you are, or what's going on. It's like your ability to work hard through a long period of time, which I am good at that, but I had a lot of misunderstandings about grit because I was all about the grit. And when you've got grit, you don't quit. But that led me into roadblocks and rock bottom, actually, because I would just go, 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 go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's go back. I want to give the audience a backdrop to this, a frame, if you will, right? Of, here's this great lesson you gave your child. We all want to give our children that lesson, but tell us about that day in 2010. You're riding your Harley, and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I just finished training clients. I had a successful fitness business. I got on my Harley, and one of the trainers that worked along with me, she said, "Hey, be careful." And I was like, "Oh, I will." Put my helmet on. It was going to be a long weekend, and I was cruising down Ventura Boulevard. And when you're riding a motorcycle, you make sure you're safe. It's not like when you're in a car, sometimes I text, I'm not going to lie, but you're very, like, you look at your surroundings and you drive defensively because you want to make sure people see you. And I saw this SUV coming out of a parking lot, or they were in a parking lot. And I was like, okay, he sees me. And then I was like, oh, wow, he doesn't see me. He shot out of the parking lot. I got T-boned. So that means there was nothing I could do but try to let off the clutch and jump off my bike. I got T-boned. I was thrown 30 feet. And all I remember, and I remember every detail of this accident, I was sliding across the asphalt. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, I hope that another car doesn't hit me, because I couldn't tell what I was sliding into. And when we came to a stop, Renee, I remember just looking down at my leg, and I only looked once because it was so awful. It was crumbled into pieces. My foot was only hanging on by the skin. There was blood everywhere. I did not know at the time that my femoral artery was actually severed. I had a guardian angel. This guy, I wish to this day I knew who this man was, because he basically saved my life. He came over and he ripped off his belt and he made a tourniquet around my leg. And then I looked over and I saw a lady faint. Like she looked at me and just the sight of what I looked like on the ground, she fainted. Luckily, the paramedics were right down the road. They didn't even wait for the call to come in. They were at the coffee bean and they heard it and saw it and they were running before they even got the call. So they got there. My husband's phone was going off because I was, of course, screaming, call 911 and call his number. And I was shouting out his number. I did not want to let go of my leg because I honestly felt like it would fall off my body. And so I was depending on any bystanders to call that number. And my husband is a first responder. He's a lieutenant commander with a highway patrol. Well, he's retired now, but he got there right away. I was a mile away from home. He got there right away. I was loaded up into the ambulance. And I remember being in the ambulance and squeezing the paramedic's leg and looking at him for some sort of, okay, I'm going to be okay now, right? And one of the first thoughts I had was, well, this kind of sucks. I'm going to have to train clients on crutches for a while. As an entrepreneur, I'm like, how can I keep my business going? And the paramedic, he would not make eye contact with me. And I thought, wow, I might be dying. I got to the hospital and I heard this crying, this wailing like I'd never heard before. And it was my husband. I'd never seen, he's a big, strong man like you, Renee. He's like Cuban, he's strong, he's like a first responder. And I yelled across the room. I thought, wow, this might be it. And I yelled across the room. I was like, honey, I need you to get over here and be strong for me. And he came over and he held my hand. And that's the last thing I remember because I needed to know that he was going to be able to take care of our kids if I died. That's the last thing I remember before I woke up out of a coma, and they said, I'm so sorry. We have to amputate your leg. It's like a war wound. There's nothing we can do for it. You have a 1% chance of saving it. And I was like, oh, there's a chance. There's a chance. And that's where my journey began. I was like, there's a chance. And it's believing in that 1%, fighting for that 1%, and not stopping and holding that vision and trusting the process. And that's how it got me to where I am today, where I get the privilege of talking to you.
Wow. Well, one, thank you for replaying that. I know that's never easy to replay an event like that. I know you've done also a lot of work and you've talked about it, but it's just the detail of that. I listened to this and imagine my loved ones, and imagine me being the one doing that, or what would it be like to observe a process like that. And and even the raw nature of the questions that go through your head. I hope no one hits me. It's fascinating how the brain works in that, to experience and observe at the same time. And you're observing yourself, but you're experiencing the life. And then the reassurance you needed from your husband that he was going to be there, and sort of the clarity that comes in those moments of what is highest and most important. And it wasn't your life, it was your kid's life. It's like that was the one thing. It wasn't your money, it wasn't how you looked that day, it wasn't what car you drove, it wasn't your social media following. It, are my kids okay? And it was just, to me, it's always fascinating to look at those moments of real truth, and how so many of us, me included, wait till people are hurt, it's too late, till we lose something or about to lose something, to really recognize its value. And for me, what if you're listening to this, what I'm hoping you're getting out of this is saying, okay, this is Amberly's journey, where it's a tragic physical accident led to continuous chronic pain. And I think you said they call it the suicide syndrome. that it's so chronic and so uncontrollable, and there really is no cure. They don't really understand it. It's at the nerve level that people just quit. And so we all have our own battles of things that happen to us. Obviously, hearing stories like this gives us perspective. And there's always the stories that are worse than yours, which give you perspective. There's always something worse, right? There's always something different and more painful. But who are you in that moment, number one? And then two, I always say that it's easy to lead when customers are buying. It's easy to lead when times are good. But what about when you lose everything? Who are you in those moments? And I think that's what I love about your story is that this is where all of that starts coming to life now for you. Who are you and what revealed for yourself? Well, the part that to me, I mean, I don't know. I know you've got another book coming out. Your second book, the first one, True Grit and Grace, but the second one, you just delivered your manuscript. I mean, I could see you writing a book on. So you're saying there's a chance. Just how applicable that idea. If there's a chance, or there's a chance. I mean, there's so many cool ideas of the power of chance. There's so many cool things I think that could come from that idea.
Renee, every time I get to talk with you, seriously, I take notes every single time I get to talk with you because it is amazing the things that you think of. I'm like, okay, I need to write that down. Maybe that's my next book. You're amazing.
Well, we need that book from you. Like I need that book from you. Like I need is that feeling because think about just that moment you were in. We got, we're going to have to amputate. So see, the experts made a decision, and they made it based on their subjective view, expert subjective view of 1%. All you needed was a chance. And how many of us have gotten chances that we squandered? How many of us didn't realize we were in the middle of our chance and it's too late? How do we realize the chances that we have in life? I mean, I think there's so much depth in that based on your story. I know a story I need to hear and continually need to hear, a message I need to hear. And I'm sure people that are listening need to hear as well. So I think that's amazing. So now here you had this thing, you wake up out of a coma, fighting for your life, and you end up keeping your leg, obviously. And Joel, if you can find a picture of the accident, and maybe we'll get it from you, we'll overlay it on the video here, and we'll maybe put some links in the show notes to some of the photos. But so now you're back. Tell us of the journey back. So now your leg is in. You've kept it. Recovery.
Tell you about that, but I also want to go back to something you just said. When you said that I had a chance, my husband and I were watching. One of my clients was in they've got a new Netflix series about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, and one of my clients happens to be in the series. So I was watching it to kind of support her, and to actually, it was fun just to watch Netflix, to be honest with you. But he was like, "Wow, this is brutal how these people get cut." And I really think that being a dancer from an early age and auditioning and being cut, and it was harsh. Boy, it was cutthroat. That really helped me as not just in life, but as an entrepreneur, because there were times where I was like, oh man, there are 500 people trying out to be the one dancer for this one movie. And I was like, well, I got a chance. You know what I mean? Like, I think that really helped me at a young age, being cut, being disappointed, having yeses, having nos. That helped me with everything, like we talked about before. It helped me develop the grit to keep going and to have the hope that things would get better. But my world came to it really stopped. As an athlete, I mean, I set a record in Texas for running the fastest mile.
How fast?
Oh gosh, it was like, it wasn't that fast, to be honest with you. It was like 5:03, 5:03, but that was back, what, 30 something years ago. So it wasn't that fast compared to what it is now.
I can't run a block in 5 minutes. That's phenomenal.
No, I used to love running. That was like my drug of choice. I loved running. I loved it. And I really tried to get back to it after my accident. That was one of my goals was, well, first of all, to be able to get out of the hospital bed and use the bathroom on my own. Second of all, like one of my goals was to be able to use crutches to get around the block, to go to Starbucks, to have a cup of coffee and meet some friends. And I set these small attainable goals so I could achieve them. But ultimately, I wanted to be able to run marathons again. And I've tried every possible way. But this disease I was diagnosed with, when I went in to see the doctor, he was like, your life is never going to be the same. He goes, you're going to be permanently disabled. You're never going to walk again. You're never going to work again. You need to go back home and get in your wheelchair. And I left that appointment feeling like I had been kicked in the gut. And I did not go home and get in my wheelchair. Instead, I went straight to physical therapy. And Terry, my therapist, said, Amberly, what are you doing here? You don't have an appointment today. Like I was there every day. Because it was a Saturday. He was like, you don't even have an appointment today. What are you doing here? And I said, I know I don't, but I've learned something. And I'm going to have to work harder than I've ever worked before if I want to have the life that I've always imagined. I've just been diagnosed with CRPS. And being diagnosed with this disease, yes, I could give up. And even my husband is like, Amberly, you don't have to work so hard. And I said, you know what? I could stay at home, put my leg up, and focus on all the pain that it gives me, or I can go be of service to others and their success, and that's how I get fulfilled. And that's what I choose to do. And I've tried every kind of treatment for the pain, and I'm still open to new things, but nothing's worked. But I've been able to manage it well enough to where I can do what I love and be of service.
So you still struggle with it today?
Oh yeah, I'm I'm still in pain every day.
Even right now?
Yeah.
Oh man. See, it's, you would never know that about you.
I don't I don't like to focus on it.
No, I know that, and I'm just honoring you in that and this is a message to all of us, is you never know what someone's feeling in their pain. What we show on the outside isn't always a reflection of what's happening inside. Sometimes what we see on the outside is the face of courage to pain on the inside. And so just beware of that, to check on those that you love and those that you care about, and to see that. And I also understand that, our focus does and our attention does make a difference in what we do. And I loved what you said there, because this is something that I've been saying for a while, but the more I've been saying it, but there's so many applications of this phrase of the power of service because I don't think the answer is the goal of life is to be happy. I think, happiness is a fleeting thing that can come from time to time, but we can't control it. And I know a lot of, people that pursue happiness and don't find any joy in that. And they find addiction in happiness, and they can find other things in happy. But I think the true purpose of life is to be of utility so that we can be of service to other people. And in that serving of others and that sharing in some way, shape, or form is the greatest feeling. Think about your favorite restaurant you went to. Think about the coolest site that you've ever been to, city. Now go that and do that alone. Is it as fun, or is it better when you're sharing? Obviously, a meal is way better when you share it. And an experience is so much better. A movie is better when someone else saw it. And so there's this service component of sharing with other people and helping somebody else through something that takes the attention off of us and even our own pain.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And that's why I have a mastermind called the Unstoppable Life Women Mastermind. And it is my favorite thing that I do. I get to do this. And you know what? So we moved to Texas. We lived in LA for 31 years, and we moved to Texas 2 years ago, and we rented a house for a year, and we looked until we could find a house, and we found this house. And when we walked in, the upstairs is like completely open, and there's a media room, and like it's like huge open space. And my first thought was like, oh, this is the best spot for a retreat for my mastermind. And so that was one of the things that I was excited about the house. And so we bought the house, and I told my husband, hey, I want to have all the ladies over for the mastermind. He's like, he's very private. He doesn't like social media. He doesn't even like for me to put him in my stories on social media. He's like, no. And then he goes, you know what? I know how much you love these ladies and how much they mean to you. Okay, we'll have them over. So now we hold these masterminds at my house. And now he's so funny because he's like, so when are the ladies coming back over? Because they love me. And I'm like, yeah, see?
I love that.
I can't wait for y'all to meet Renee. He is going to love you. He is going to love you.
Love it. Well, Cubans we have an instant bond that happens. It's a really cool brotherhood that's existing, and when we meet, it'll be pretty fun. And so tell us about your new book, because I know you were on the Ed Mylett Show and how fun of an experience that was. Tell us about that. Tell us about your new book. I want to hear what's happening, what you're doing now.
Okay, well, I will just tell you, let me be real with you. Before I went on Ed's show, the week before, I was in Costa Rica trying a stem cell treatment that was supposed to help me with the CRPS. And I was thinking, I'm going to leave here feeling superhuman, because I had already talked to, I don't know if you know who Ed McManus is. I was like, talked to several people who was like, oh, it's awesome. And I was thinking, I'm going to be superhuman. I ended up in a wheelchair. I couldn't even walk. It was horrible. I got back to Texas. I was flying to LA, and bless John Gordon and Catherine Gordon, who I love, they were like, no, you're not staying in a hotel. You're staying with me. My flight was delayed. I showed up on their doorstep at like midnight on crutches. And I was like, I can't believe I'm finally going to be on Ed's show. And I wanted to be able to walk in there. And I'm on crutches. And I was like, I don't care if I have to crawl in there. I am going to be there. I prayed about it. The next morning I woke up, and I was able to walk for the first time in over a week. And so I walked into Ed's studio, and you know what was so great, Renee? I was his first guest in his new studio, and I haven't shared this with anybody, but I'll share it with y'all. He didn't have all the lights and the cameras all completely set up, which I'm so grateful for, because I got to like hang out with him longer while they did all that. So I got to hang out for like 2 hours and just talk. And it was just like talking, like it was the energy. It felt like, Renee, it feels like when I get to talk to you, how I feel like I could just talk to you and there's just like brainstorming and energy and like thunder. That's what it felt like with Ed. And so we did the podcast, and it was amazing. And I was talking to him about, I just signed a book deal with Wiley, and I've talked to you about that too. And I just turned in my manuscript, and Wiley has been amazing. It's such a different experience with this publisher versus my first publisher. They've already got it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. They've got the book. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they don't mess around. Wiley's phenomenal. I mean, how fun to just be able to hang out with an icon like Ed and have that conversation, and one for him to recognize your story and the value of that, because it's such an incredible channel to be a part of, and audience that probably just loved your story.
He is amazing. And you know what? I've been on the Today Show, on The Doctors, on Hallmark, on huge podcasts. Do you know that when I was on Ed's show, I got more spike in book sales, more people that reached out to me, more emails, more followers from his show more than any major media. And that's the power of having a podcast and an influence. I was blown away. But you know what? I've known Ed for years and people ask me, "Well, how did you get on Ed's show?" And I was like, "You know what? I focused on the relationship. I really focused on the relationship. I shared the stage with him many times, and I've never asked anything from him. I've always asked, how can I support you? How can I promote your new book? What can I do for you? I just really, I mean, it was a dream to be on his show. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Yes, I would love to be on your show. But that's not what I was after. I was after just let me build a relationship. I want to get to know you. I want to see how I can support you. And I think that's the thing sometimes people miss is like, how can you actually build a relationship? And you know what? I think it happens over time. I don't think it happens like right away. Like a lot of times people just like ask, and it's like, no, let me get to know you.
And it's a nice outcome if it happens, if it decides to go that way.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who has, good platform can see through the people that are that way. And then, those that are truly wanting a relationship and have no attachment to any of the outcomes there.
I think so too. Hey, I wanted to ask you, so I'm so honored you were on my podcast talking about authenticity. How do you read people when you first meet them in person with their like what is it? Is there something, do you just go by your gut or what do you do?
What is our gut? What is our intuition? To me, it's a combination of several things. I think intuition is more tangible than people realize. Intuition to me is the ability to be fully present in a moment and read a situation, take in body language, take in tone, take in facial expressions, eyes, questions, everything in the context, and quickly cross-reference that to your past experience to then put that together in some algorithm that can be predictive of what's happening and what's going to happen. And so the more experienced someone is, the more propensity they have to being intuitive, the more present and able to listen, the less inner noise they have, the more intuitive they can be. And so for me, I think one of the things that has made me good at what I do is just to be able to listen, watch, and observe. Well, I think it's a necessity in what we do, right? Especially in our Amplify course, we people wonder why even lunch I go to my room and I might take a 10-minute nap, and afterwards I don't go out to dinner. I go to my room and go to sleep because I'm being fully like to be able to listen. You have to have an empty mind. I mean, truly listen. You have to have an empty mind, no assumptions, not prepping what you're going to say next. And I think that makes for a good podcast too, is to say, here's a general sense of direction, but then letting your answers guide the next piece requires that. So I think if we learn to fully listen and pay attention to what's going on, and then gaining experience over time of what works and what doesn't work, your body will start telling you. Then you have to start trusting what it is. And so I think it is a gut feel. I don't use body language for conclusion. I use it as curiosity. Like, what does it lead me to? What breadcrumb is that, and what's the real thing? Because we're wrong about body language so often, but if we listen to it as a guide to ask questions, it can be really, really insightful.
Yeah. You are such a great listener though and so attentive, and I'll never forget the first time I met you in person. I was like I kind of went like, "Oh my gosh, he knows my name?" Like, what?
Well, of course I knew your name. You're Amberly Lago.
I was just like, "Oh my goodness, you're amazing. Wow." But you have that ability. You make people feel special. You make people feel seen and heard. And I think that's what we all really want is to be seen, heard, and understood.
It really, truly, it let me add to that, because is that all we want? Yes, it is. We need that before we go any further. I would say that is the price of entry to relationship, is to be seen and to be heard, to be validated in some way. That's that price of entry. And from there, relationships can be built, from there, business can be done, ideas and innovation can stem, all those things. But you remove what you just said there, not much else is happening after that. It's pretty profound.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be speaking at AMPCON. We are so excited. I mean, like, it's just going to be so much fun.
I'm so excited. Are you kidding me? This is a dream come true.
Oh, by the way, if you haven't noticed, Amberly is such a genuine, complimentary, inspiring cheerleader of a person. This is one of the reasons people love you. I mean, it is impossible to be around you and not feel good. So thank you for that. That is very sweet.
Are you kidding though? Like, seriously, I am so excited about your event. I still have video on my phone from you speaking at your event last year when I went to AMPCON, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best event ever. And I still have video on my phone that I have of you speaking because you're that captivating when you speak. And I'm so excited and so honored that I get to be a part of your event on August 15th and 16th. I am truly, truly honored. So thank you, Renee.
Well, I'm excited the audience gets a chance to meet you, and we all get a chance to spend more time together. And of course, when we're in Dallas, both my wife and I will be there for sure to get into the real Amberly Lago show in person. That'll be great. So your new book is available on Amazon, and the name of that book is, and we'll make sure we put it in the show notes.
Yeah, can you believe it? I can't believe it. Joy Through the Journey is the new book. It's already available for it, like pre-sale on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Porchlight, like all the platforms. I'm blown away that Wiley has already got this book on pre-sale. I'm having meetings next week with my PR and book launch people to get it out there, but I've already had people in every single person in my mastermind. First of all, they're getting your book. They're getting your book, which is right here, right here. They're getting your book, Renee, and that you so graciously offered to sign. So I've talked to Maddie about that, and they've all ordered my book on Amazon already.
Well, we will be all ordering your book here as well, and we will make sure that this is a big part of this episode. That people please go out and order the book. If one, do it to support an author. Two, do it to serve yourself in the journey and what she's gone through, and helping prepare us all to go through and find joy in the most difficult parts of our journey. We can find joy in great journeys and vacations, but how do you find joy in the difficulty? That's the hard part.
That's what it's about, Renee. That is what it's about.
So I'll leave you with this idea, and it's a concept called Amor Fati. Have you heard of that concept before?
No.
Amor Fati, which, well, you live Amor Fati. Amor Fati means, Amor means love, Fati means fate. It's to love your fate, to love your story, but more importantly, to fall in love with the tragedies of our story, because we can't change them. There's no way you can go and change what happened to you, but you can re-narrate it and you can re-look at it and you can fall in love with it because of it's part of the formula that created who you are. And another way of thinking of Amor Fati is the love of life as it is, not as you wish it would have been. The wishing it would have been something is a fruitless effort because you can't change what happened. But what if we learned to love all of the tragedies in our life and realizing that those tragedies gave us gifts? Maybe it's a gift of contrast. Maybe it's a gift of empathy. Maybe it's a gift of just understanding. Maybe it's a gift of humility. Something came out of that, all of it. And if we can find that love in the story of who we are, I think that's when life starts to make sense, because our most difficult events are the ones that we can't explain. We can't understand why it happened. But when we can do that, we can find meaning in the difficulty, meaning in the tragedy. Now we can start moving forward. So Amberly, you are a living testament of Amor Fati. It's just such an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much. And I'll leave you with the last word.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. I just feel like every time I get to with you, I learn so much, and I can understand why people go to your events and listen to your show because they learn so much. So it's an honor for me to be here. But I just want to say to anybody who's listening who may be going through a hard time that I understand. And I just want you to know that change is possible, transformation is possible, and hope is available, and to always reach out. I didn't feel like I could reach out for help. I felt like I had to do everything on my own. If you're struggling, reach out for help. You can reach out to me. Reach out, send me a DM on Instagram. You're not in this alone. I used to think I got to do everything by myself, and when we do things together, that's when we become unstoppable.
I love it. Amberly, thank you so much. And if you're listening to this, please, as always, like, subscribe, share. Help us grow this message. Help everybody get an insight into what Amberly's message is. And let's go out and get her book. And as always, please continue to tune in. Thank you, as always, and we'll see you on the next show.
Thank you for sharing this time with us. If the experience resonated with you, follow us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or amplifymylife.com. Share it with anyone else who's ready to amplify their lives. And remember to let our hearts speak in sequence. For more from Renee Rodriguez, visit meetrenee.com.